Okay, so this is Letters to Ewan number 96. This one's called What Grownups Do. This is one of my favorite ones. Okay. Dear Ewan, I want to talk about privilege and what's the opposite of privilege? My privilege is I've always been safe to tell the truth. One time I got arrested for being brown. I told that guy the truth and he did not care. I consider it more of a one off. When I was 17, I was at football camp in eastern Washington. My roommate was my best friend, Alika. We were bored and sitting around our room at night. I started talking about the trouble in my family and how I felt. It was the first time told my story of pain to anyone. When my story of pain burst out of my chest, I felt dizzy. The tears were streaming down my face. I look up to see Alika staring at me. He says, Mikey, that was fucking awesome. That's when I learned that jumping into vulnerability on purpose could look cool. It became my superpower to tell the truth, any truth, and it actually seemed to make us more connected. My vulnerability ferried the light of connection. Through college, the cult, and ever after, I've been able to tell my story of pain and really feel it. In the cult, it was basically my brand. I'm going to tell the truth no matter how much it hurts me. In the relational arts, I spent the first 6 years setting off emotional EMPs to galvanize the room. People couldn't ignore the deeper feelings when I did that. I started realizing that I trusted myself more after I would emotionally cut myself. Like a cutter wounding my heart's secret inner thighs, I had to feel the pain to believe I was telling the truth. Why? I was so inured to doubting myself that my only respite could be the pure honesty of my pain. But that road had no end in sight. I had to emotionally cut myself to connect, and I was tired of bleeding. I named it with Jordan and Val, and slowly, over the years, I stopped. It was like quitting a drug. I gave up access to a bright light. That's not true. I gave up on an access point. It's warmer now. It feels like eating broccoli instead of Cheetos. I'm growing up. Less neon and more nourishment. I sowed wild oats and now I have a pretty sustainable farm. There's a participant at the Relateful studio named Michael Conley who never cuts himself. He shows up like a strange blip of discordance at the studio. I pondered what was different about him and never wanted to boil it down to him being black. I still don't, but it's definitely a factor. The relational arts at this time in history are definitely white. White meaning they have the privilege of infinite time to tell stories of pain, not realizing that so much of the world doesn't have the time to both find food and talk about how bad their childhoods were. Michael doesn't tell stories of pain. He doesn't own his experience like anyone else I've met. He never doubts himself, and instead of looking for fear, sadness, or anger inside, he looks for what he can commit to changing about his choices. At the London immersion, he said something like, all those feelings are going to be down there, so I prefer to see what I can do. That's the gist of my relationship to my shadow. I looked at least 4 years past the point where I tell people they should stop looking. We should only dig into our shadow to the point where we're no longer afraid of being with it when it pops up unexpectedly. He and Jordan are the two most confident men that I know. They both seem to think of commitment as a natural feeling instead of a bypass. Shadow hunters see action as an avoidance, but humans build things. They don't build houses and think it's a good idea to worry if the house is always about to fall down. They trust. Trust what? Trust that it's perfect? Nah. They trust that they'll be able to deal with whatever happens. They understand the choice of okayness. One thing that many of us have seen that so many people miss is we have always been the one that stood back up. It was my privilege to have more time than I needed to delve into my shadows. It was my privilege to use vulnerability as a currency to find connection. It was my privilege that I lived long enough to go to a burn and to meet Michael Conley and see that, in hindsight, I wasted some time. Commodification of vulnerability was a ferry that I rode too long. It's okay, but that toy of my childhood sits idly now. Michael Conley is a lot like Jordan. Somewhere between them, I see a miracle. Michael Conley stopped digging into his shadow. He's literate to the pain inside. He can feel the ebbs and flows of his nervous system. He builds the life he wants, even though he knows he could be infinitely startled wandering around his pain. I think he got bored. At the immersion in London, it was clear women love Michael Conley. It's so funny. All of these ladies start licking their chops. You could feel the healthy hunger in the room. Woo! Michael is sexy, and Michael is safe. We were focusing on him for a part of a flow, and he was talking about how he's very careful around women in general. He takes responsibility for men being larger than women. The ladies both nodded their heads and bristled. Something about that both turns them on and makes them fussy. Michael is choosing to build a world where his privilege of size is extended as a protector. He took responsibility for what he knew by collaring the beast inside himself that is inside all men. The women wouldn't let him off the hook. Yes, it's good that he doesn't walk too closely behind women at night. Yes, it's good that he's subtly suppressing his sexuality so that women will feel safer. Wait, that's not right. The women howled. I'm not all women. I'm me. I like that you're dangerous. What's dangerous about you awakens me. What's dangerous about you is what I'm longing to be near. Because you're so safe is why you have to let your danger play. And he took it in. He was treating them like a policy. All women need safety. But when a room full of women wanted more danger and wanted more nuance between everybody, and he calculated that he was already doing what he thought was his best, he recommitted right there. He didn't scrap everything he had built, but he committed to building an addition, a fenced yard where his beast can stretch its legs a bit more. There will always be a woman on his path when he's jogging at night. He will always be concerned that she feels safe. But now he's going to have to look every woman in the eye and feel what safety and danger she's aligned with and step towards meeting her there. He was at capacity. He knew that there were infinite pains inside that could justify it. And then he just committed to taking a further step. The look on his face says to me, I don't know how I'll be with so much nuance and freedom, but I will because I can see the truth in the room that I wasn't understanding before. This is where he and Jordan walked the miracle. If they can see the truth, then they both will take a step forward, even if their perception of their capacity is signaling that what truth is asking for is impossible. That's a great definition of a miracle. Grit is commitment. And the indulgences of privilege cannot lead us there. They meander in the infinite space between two mirrors. The way to move is to block the sense of looking at ourselves and already know that what we've seen has dictated our next becoming. We can be seen by the impact of life on us. The eye cannot see itself, but it can trust that its vision is proof of existence. Looking is a bug demanding we justify what we know in case anyone comes around demanding we justify our freedom. Michael Conley didn't have every privilege. It was the eye of the needle. He followed truth and love through to claim the privileges that actually matter: trust, safety, agency, and belonging. Jordan had a lot of privilege, but he couldn't stand on his confidence if he turned away from the truth that everything is love. They both have fidelity to truth and love. Privilege without fidelity to truth is vanity. Privilege with fidelity to truth is nobility. Grit without love is brutality. Grit with love is devotion. Devotion and nobility are the path of a great miracle, and it's a direction that all true grown-ups grow. I fell asleep while thinking about this letter, and in the dream there were masses of zombies, but they were just standing there peacefully. Jordan was there, and we sat and talked and kind of forgot that an army of zombies was standing peacefully around us. I love you, Johan. Mike.